Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition and we turned out a poem 593, I Think I Was Enchanted. Now, right away, I want to begin by saying that I'm grateful to my Emily group who studied this poem with me recently and confided to me that this is a poem they very much struggled with to even like to understand. And I pointed out to them right away what I will now say to you guys, and that is this. Many of Emily's poems you can read without any need of background information. Success is counted sweetest by those who ne'er succeed. To comprehend a nectar requires sorest need. But there are some of the poems in the collection of the 1,775 poems of Emily Dickinson contained in the Johnson edition that without some help, you really cannot understand exactly what's going on. Now, in a poem like this, you can make some vague references to what it is that enchanted Emily, but without realizing that this is a tribute poem to the great Elizabeth Barrett Browning, who Emily adored. And we've already commented on this in our previous study. She died the 30th of June, 1861, and it devastated Emily. You will remember already, I believe, that we had some conversation about this when we did 312. Her last poets ended, silver perished with her tongue, not on record bubbled other, flute or woman so divine, not unto its summer morning, robin uttered half the tune, gushed too free for the adoring from the Anglo-Florentine, late the praise, 'tis dull conferring on the head too high to crown, diadem or ducal showing, be its grave sufficient sign, not that we no poet's kinsmen suffocate with easy woe, what and if ourself a bridegroom put her down in Italy. And you'll remember when we did 363, I went to thank her, but she slapped her bed a funneled stone, with nosegays at the head and foot that travelers had thrown. Who went to thank her, but she slept. 'Twas short to cross the sea, to look upon her like alive, but turning back 'twas slow. Emily, of course, making some recommendations even to those traveling to the gravesite to have some kind of special observations. Now, the great biographer Wisher, in his classic This Was a Poet, has this to say about Barrett Browning as well as Emily. Quote, in its superficial aspects, Mrs. Browning's poetry seems very unlike Emily Dickinson's, but intrinsically the two women had much in common. Both were intense and intellectual, both delighted in sententiousness, quickened with fresh impulses of feeling and vision. Both were deeply sensitive to the analogies between matter and soul. If Mrs. Browning's reach often exceeded her grasp, Emily was not one to turn from her verse because its occasional depths were mingled with long stretches of shallowness. What she discerned was the sincere outpouring of a great heart. Quote, that Mrs. Bronte fainted, we need not read Ierolli to know, end quote. Moreover, to continue with Wisher, as has frequently been pointed out, her admiration for the poet was colored by her adoration of the woman whose cloistered life had so dramatically bloomed in an ideal marriage, an image of vicarious fulfillment that all closed in hearts. When Mrs. Browning died, Emily felt the loss as a personal bereavement. She besought Boyles, then on the eve of a visit to Europe, to tell her any anecdotes that he might hear of the Anglo-Florentine. The framed portrait that hung on her wall was a witness to her unfaltering devotion, and it is that devotion that we'll be focusing on here. Now, our assumptions that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily is our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful as well that you have already read the preceding 592 poems so that you can place this poem within the context. We just finished with 592, What Care the Dead Have for Translator. Now, here we have another poem about the poet and about reading. So I want us to focus in on that as well. We're going to have some comments to make about the relationship between this and the classic Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Cold as Classic. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. Now, our question has always been, what was Emily really listening to, reading? What were her literary antecedents? And we know that one of them was for sure Browning. Now, the other question is Emily and her quote-unquote conversion experience. Now, Emily was raised to believe that you needed to have a conversion experience to be saved. Emily herself refused to engage in ever a conversion experience to the church. However, we think in this poem that we are seeing a conversion that is being articulated. The religious language of this poem, dare I say it, the blasphemous use of the religious language, I think will be self-evident. I want you to pay attention to that religious language. By the way, one scholar has called this bewildered hilarity, and I think there's a reason for that one as well. She says it this way: I think I was enchanted when first a somber girl, I read that foreign lady, the dark felt beautiful. And whether it was noon at night or only heaven at noon, for very lunacy of light, I had not power to tell. The bees became as butterflies, the butterflies as swans, approached and spurned the narrow grass. And just the meanest tunes that nature murmured to herself to keep herself in cheer, I took for giants practicing Titanic opera. The days to mighty meters stepped, the homeliness adorned as if unto a jubilee, 'twere suddenly confirmed. I could not have defined the change, conversion of the mind, like sanctifying in the soul, is witnessed, not explained. 'Twas a divine insanity, the danger to be sane. Should I again experience, 'tis antidote to turn to tombs of solid witchcraft. Magicians be asleep, but magic hath an element like deity to keep. Now, this is one of Emily's longer poems, and right away this shocks a lot of readers. Some of my in the Emily group pointed this out, that this is a very unusual poem for Emily, and I think they're right to point that out. But I think that the other thing we have to point out is that Emily moves in this poem. From when she was a little girl, she qualifies herself as somber. It isn't clear, Wisher and others will argue, that Emily was actually that somber, but we'll play the game nonetheless. I'm intrigued as well by all of the words in this poem that Emily will use only one time in her entire poetic product. Only once, many of these words. First of all, the construction, I think, is in 24 of Emily's poems. I think she says, I was enchanted. By the way, let's just point out that we go from enchanted to magic. Now, this enchanted, we have already seen in 52, poem 52. We'll see it again in 756. We're going to see it again in 1118 when we get there at the end, near the end of our study. And it'll read something like this. Exhilaration is the breeze that lifts us from the ground and leaves us in another place, whose statement is not found, returns us not, but after time we soberly descend. Notice we're going to be somber in this poem. Soberly descend a little newer for the term upon enchanted ground. Now, I think this idea of being enchanted or being consumed or being captured is central to how we will read Emily's project of being a poet. In other words, as she will say in one of her classics, all, she will say it that way, all is the price of all in 772. I think I was enchanted. When first she says, a somber girl, this is her self-assessment, it isn't completely clear it's true, and the word girl will take us back to our study of 586. And by the way, somber is only used one time, and it's here. This is the only time she uses this word in all of her poetry. She said, back then, when I was a little girl, I read that foreign lady, right? That is to say, somehow foreign, the foreign lady, both capitalized, right? The lady who's going to bewitch her and that kind of thing. The dark, she says, felt beautiful, and right away we're talking transformation here. Again, we think of the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, who in the what is Calder tell us at the end of the poem? He rose the next morning, wiser and a sadder man. He rose the morrow morn. The ability to connect with the text so well that one doesn't even go to the party. One just goes home because one has been so affected. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net on rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. And whether it was noon at night or heaven at noon, in other words, turns everything upside down. For very lunacy of light. Now, lunacy only gets used one time in all of her poetry. She's going to get to sane in a little bit. And, of course, lunacy of light makes us immediately think of Lucifer. I think Emily's having a bit of fun here, guys, and I think this is why that hilarity thing is said by a few scholars. She's having some fun. In other words, the bringer of light, Lucifer, came to visit me when I was a somber girl. I had, she says, not power to tell. Of course, I love the use of this idea of power to tell. Well, one more reason why we called our series Chats with Emily. And then she'll say it. Everything changed. The bees became as butterflies, back to transformation. Butterflies as swans, small things become big things. Approached and spurned the narrow grass. I love this word narrow. Of course, we have to think of our Walt Whitman. We've given full lectures of all the poems of Leaves of Grass. We call that series Talks with Walt. And here, the narrow grass. I think narrow is significant. In other words, my whole view of the world expanded. And just the meanest tunes, we go from narrow to meanest. That nature murmured to herself. I love the word murmured. To keep herself in cheer, I took for giants. In other words, I completely saw nature fundamentally different when I read Browning's work. Practicing Titanic opera. Titanic will take us back to poem 175, opera to 161 and 326. The days to mighty meters stepped. In other words, all of a sudden the rhythms were different. The homeliest adorned. In other words, things that didn't seem so great, all of a sudden I saw them in a completely different light. And then she'll use the language of the Jewish Jubilee. She says it this way, as if unto a Jubilee, notice capitalized. This will take us back to poem 364, by the way. To suddenly confirm, notice again, all this religious language. It's quite remarkable. I could not have defined the change. It's translinguistic. We've seen this in a number of her poems. Conversion of the mind, and again, conversion gets used one and only one time in all our poetry. It's here. Conversion of the mind. So notice, like sanctifying in the soul. Sanctifying also only gets used one time in our poetry, and it's here. Sanctifying in the soul. You'll remember soul is used in 67 of Emily's poems. Is witnessed, not explained. Now, this word witnessed will take us back to 263, to 465. We'll see it again when we do 925 together, and it'll read like this. Struck was I, not yet by lightning. Lightning lets away power to perceive his process with vitality. Maimed was I, yet not by venture, stone of stolid boy, nor a sportsman pre-adventure, who mine enemy. Robbed was I, intact to abandon, all my mansion torn, sun withdrawn to recognition, furthest shining done, yet was not the foe of any, nor the smallest bird in the nearest orchard dwelling, be of me afraid. Most I love the cause that slew me. Notice, instead of enchanted here, it's sling. Often as I die, its beloved recognition holds a sun on me, best at setting, as is nature's neither witnessed rise, till the infinite aurora in the other's eyes. Again, this witnessed rise. Here she says, there's certain things that happen within the soul. You can't be witnessed, but notice it isn't the soul, it's the mind for her. Not explained. And then she'll say it. It was a divine insanity. We're back to lunacy, aren't we? Right? And you'll remember when we did 435, much madness is divine a sense to the discerning eye. She'll use this idea that who gets to define sanity or insanity? She says it's the majority is all prevail in this. The danger to be sane. By the way, insanity is used once and only once in all of Emily's poetry, and it's here. The woman who some people have claimed must have had some kind of mental break or must have been insane. She'll use the word only once in its ear. Should I again experience, 'tis antidote to turn. By the way, antidote is only used once in all our poetry, and it's here. Turn to tombs, only once used in all our poetry, tombs. Of solid witchcraft, remember witchcraft from 155. Magicians be asleep. Think about how magicians are usually related to the male as witchcraft is related to female. Magicians be asleep, but magic hath an element like deity to keep. Now, I think what Emily's arguing here at 2A is that great artists are often transformative in their effect, in their enchanting. At 2B, the religious language is amazing. The words that get used in this poem once and only once, somber, lunacy, Titanic, conversion, sanctifying, insanity, anecdote tunes. It's amazing to me, all this language. At 3A, well, of course, we mentioned Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. My Emily group wanted to mention, of course, the great play Wicked, and the whole notion of being somehow captured in The Wizard of Oz as well, obviously. Of course, we would pay tribute to Browning by just reminding ourselves of her songs of the Portuguese Sonnet 43. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall not love thee better after death. A poem that, of course, Emily would have known. And it's interesting to compare Emily's poetry to the very poem I just read. Finally, to own a poem like this, when was a time that an artist transformed you, enchanted you, dare we say it, provided lunacy of light, where the dark felt somehow beautiful, where there was a divine insanity? Is it possible that's happening to you with your study of Emily? I hope so. Thank you.